Earlier this week, Devin Bush's fifth-year extension was declined by the Pittsburgh Steelers. What it means for him, the linebacker room, and why didn't they get a linebacker earlier in the draft if they didn't believe in him? We'll talk about all that and more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter, your host, joined by Jenna of Channel 11 WPXI. Today, let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on the video if you enjoy. Hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday content, as well as our bonus episodes and breaking news updates. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day. If you want to help us out, go and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and include a positive comment with your 5-star review, and you get a special shout out at the end of the show. Joining me today is, as I said earlier, is Jenna, Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, we missed you last week. It was a tough lineup because we had the NFL draft and we were up all night long, just like Penguins fans were up all night long for Game 1 of their playoff series with the Rangers. But how you doing, Jenna?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm hoping that they are not up all night long for Game 2 when we are recording this. Just pray for easy storylines and a nice quick Penguins win, like a 3-0, 4-0.
Nice.
That would be nice. That would be nice. But it's so funny because it doesn't feel like it's been a week since the draft. And I was looking at the calendar today and I'm like, how has it been a week? What happened?
Time flies.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it also hasn't been a week since the Pittsburgh Steelers declined to exercise the fifth-year option of Devin Bush. And this was an interesting storyline because Devin Bush, one of the few players that in the first round that Kevin Colbert has ever traded up for, up there with Troy Polamalu and Santonio Holmes and other guys like that. So people are looking at this and thinking, okay, well, Devin Bush, and first year, really good. Second year was playing really well and then got hurt. Third year didn't play really well. And so people are wondering, what does that mean for Devin Bush? Well, Kevin Colbert was speaking on 93.7 The Fan this week. And in doing so, he said, quote, I think he understood completely, talking about Devin Bush, because he doesn't feel that he was the same player this year. And he was frustrated by that. And during the season, I would say he was frustrated by that. He also said to us, there are two Devins before the ACL tear and after. That is a very telling sign, but this is something that I was talking about, that Devin Bush on the field was not the same Devin Bush that was making a lot of plays, and that is why they couldn't give him the fifth-year extension. Jenna, what was your read on how the Steelers handle this? Because they waited until after the draft and then didn't get him an extension.
Well, I think it kind of when they drafted, how they drafted, and not picking or not drafting a linebacker, shows kind of where they are with him. And I think this is kind of them playing it safe and also them challenging him a little bit because he knows that he expects better of himself. He wants more. And it was so interesting when we talked with him, when we talked with a lot of the defensive staff last year, the couple times we did, he even said it, he wasn't himself. He's not, there was moments of tentativeness where he would go to cut and just, that when you come back from an injury as severe as an ACL, there's that little bit of tentativeness where you don't want to do everything exactly. And, athletes, right. I'm going on a little tangent here, but, athletes constantly are in routines. So when you learn how to cut and how to move, and that's what injured you, you're very apprehensive to want to do that exact thing. And you're kind of, sometimes you favor another leg, or you don't go all in on that because you're like, well, I tore it last time. It's such a mental hurdle to get over. And I think a lot of last season was what we saw Devin Bush getting over those mental hurdles. And he even said, this isn't the player he is. The defensive coaching staff said, he's coming off that huge injury. This is a big thing to kind of come back from. And I think this season is really going to be telling. And that's why the Steelers were like, hey, look, go out there and prove it. Prove to us that you can be that player. Prove to yourself that you can be that player. And then the money might come versus, hey, we're going to invest this money into you, but we don't know exactly who you're going to be, which Devin Bush we're going to get coming into this season.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, like you were alluding to with about the draft picks, these are mixed messages because if they
Mhm.
really didn't believe in him, wouldn't they have went and gotten a linebacker at the top of this draft? Maybe the second round, they had a chance at Chad Muma, Chenal, like guys like that they could have gotten that would have said, "Hey, Devin Bush, if you don't play well, this guy's waiting right behind you to be the next guy next to Myles Jack." But at the same time, they didn't draft a guy, but they also didn't give him the extension. To me, that's a sign that's like, hey, there's still belief that he can be the Devin Bush that they hoped he would be, and that he can be the star of this team. Like you said, they're giving him this year to prove that, but they're also not putting themselves in a hole for the year after in 10 million to say, all right, we're putting all that money there because we're trusting that you will be that. You have to prove to that. So it's an interesting set of mixed signals there from Kevin Colbert in the front office. And again, not mixed signals if they're lying about anything or that they're misleading anything. It's just like hey, you know what? Maybe they thought that the linebackers that they wanted would have fallen to them, or they were considering maybe taking one. It just didn't work out that way. And this is their chance to say, hey, go prove yourself. Otherwise, we'll basically go and reload at linebacker next year. I just think it's interesting how you can look at it from both sides and see, oh yeah, well they signed Myles Jack, so clearly they don't have much faith in him. But oh yeah, they didn't draft anybody, so maybe they do have faith in him. It kind of puts you in an interesting middle point for the Steelers defense.
No, it really does. And I think something that's so interesting too is the addition of Brian Flores, because if
Mm-hmm.
anybody's going to be able to get the top tier Devin Bush, why we went up, why we traded for you, why we got you, Devin Bush, I have a feeling it really could be Brian Flores. I think, again, we just hear all the time how much players love working with him, and having him being on that defensive staff. I feel like, especially for a guy like Devin Bush, he's going to create that relationship with him. It's probably kind of already the groundwork's being laid a little bit between the relationship between the two of them. But you create that, you foster that, you find a guy who you really trust in, who is as talented as Flores is, and who believes in you the way that I have a feeling he's going to at least say he believes in Devin Bush, and instill in that way, hey, look, I have faith in you to be that guy. Go out there and be that guy. I think that's just going to help him phenomenally. And again, coming off an injury like this that was so major, you need a little bit of time. I think a lot of people forget too, like everyone's like, oh, well, he had all last season to recover. He had last season to rehab and recover.
Yeah.
You're not training.
Not the same.
No, it's not even close. And so I think having this full off season here where he goes in, he trains the way that he has trained. He, isn't focused on the rehab. He's focused on the, how can I be the best person I am? I feel like I've seen some clips of him doing like shuttle drills and ladders on the beach recently. Did I see that?
No, yeah, you did see that. Yes.
Come up on Twitter? I think I'm mixing that and Najee's Shakira hips ladder drill.
That was funny.
Oh, it's phenomenal. But Devin Bush is putting in the work. And I think that he knows what's on the line for him in his future football career. And he wants to say, hey, here I am. I am that player you drafted, that you went up to get. I'm going to prove to you I have value. I want to be here on this team, because he's also probably sick and tired of everybody saying negative things about him too.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that's the big thing. He does want to prove himself. And I also think it's good that Kevin Colbert says that he understands, because he knows he wasn't the same player. It would be different if Devin Bush was out here unfollowing the Steelers on Instagram and, leaving off like, cryptic tweets about stuff. Then I think it would kind of add to the situation. But it seemed, it's been mum's the word, and he's just training. We've just seen a training video of him. We haven't heard anything from him. So I think that it could be a situation where he knows he has to be better. And I think that's the exciting part that Steelers fans might want to hold on to. We're going to talk about that impact with the linebacker room, his pairing with Myles Jack, and what it might mean, especially with how they went and they addressed the defense in the NFL draft, which really wasn't much, because they just got DeMarvin Leal, who will be a defensive lineman, and they didn't do anything to really address the secondary. So we'll talk about that, but maybe Devontae KZ plays a role. But first, we got to talk to you about our friends here at BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com, whether she prefers a statement piece or everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry options for every mom, and Mother's Day is here this weekend. If you are running out of time, go to Blue Nile. They will help you out big time. You can shop high quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklaces. If you're looking for fine jewelry but you're having trouble choosing, you can go to BlueNile.com, and their jewelry experts are on hand 24/7, and they're available by phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. And if you're not shopping for Mother's Day, but you're searching to celebrate the special woman of your life, go on BlueNile.com, and you can easily navigate thousands of fine jewelry options at every price point. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry at BlueNile.com. And the Locked On podcast listeners will get $50 to $500 off with this special deal. This podcast exclusive, though, is only good through Mother's Day. So be sure to go to BlueNile.com, use the promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace at BlueNile.com today. We're also brought to you by BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the start of Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action when you visit BetOnline, where the game starts. And Jenna, when we're doing we do back-to-back ad reads, we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. So let's get to looking at this defense as a whole. Because right now, if you're looking off the ball, not a ton has changed as far as finding new blood. Now, in the linebacker room, I mean, Myles Jack did change. That was a big addition. So I take that back in that part. But coming out of the draft, the only addition since the start of the draft really to the group that might matter is in the secondary, with DeMonte KZ being the new safety that has been signed. He's a guy that can play slot. He can play deep safety. He seems like a good veteran, and there's some confidence there. But the linebacker pair of Myles Jack and Devin Bush, to me, this group is going to be so important because they're going to be the group that needs to go sideline to sideline, tackle the runners in space, but also help in coverage. But I also wonder how much coverage they'll have to really do over the middle, because now with KZ and Edmonds and Fitzpatrick, you have three safeties who are experienced at running coverage and helping with zone coverage over the middle. So that might mitigate how much Jack and Bush have to do, but still their athleticism is something they're going to key into. I am very intrigued, just like you said about Brian Flores, how do these teams' linebackers operate in big games?
Yeah, and how do they kind of push each other in that sense? Because again, we haven't been able to interview Myles Jack in person in Pittsburgh yet, but I can just kind of sense that he's going to light that fire under Devin Bush's butt a little bit and say, hey, all right, come with me. We're gonna be this, I'm not gonna say a star, but we're gonna be this kick a star.
I got you.
Tandem here. I can really see that happening. Because didn't he text Devin Bush initially, right when I feel like those two are going to work very well together, and having a guy like Myles Jack, again, going back to kind of what I said about Brian Flores, but having people that in a support system like this that are around you to push you and to challenge you. I think this is just going to do Devin Bush a whole lot of good. And he's also going to want to raise his game to the level of what I think we expect Myles Jack to bring when he takes the field for week one.
I agree. And that is an interesting thing there, pushing each other, because they're not necessarily competition because they're both the starters. Robert Spillane was brought back. Buddy Johnson will still be there. So there's elements to this that they're not necessarily competition, but they could be competing to see who gets the big contract after this next season, because Myles Jack's on a 2-year deal. So really he's on a prove it deal where if he's great, they'll find a way to extend him. If he's not great, they might find a way to get rid of him so that they don't pay that big cap number the next year. But if Devin Bush is great, they'll find a way to extend him. And maybe it might be a question of who gets paid more. But either way, they can help each other become a linebacker pair. And I can also see the Steelers saying, you know what? This is an important part of our defense. It was, we were the worst rushing defense in the NFL last year. Part of it was our problems at linebacker. Let's pay to have, if these guys work out in 2022, say Devin Bush and Myles Jack are a really good pair, and they are kicking a star like you said. Put you say that, maybe you say, hey, you know what, we're paying both of you guys to stick around because you're in your mid-20s. You'll be able to be here for the next several years. You can set a tone in the linebacker room, and then if Buddy Johnson comes up, great. If we draft another guy, awesome. But we know we have these two veterans who know the middle of the field, and that's so important to the Steelers defense. And I say this a lot. if you look throughout the history of the Steelers' great defenses, there's always a great interior defensive line, a great linebacker or linebacker pair up the middle, and a great safety up the middle behind them. When you go back to the 70s, that's Mean Joe Green and the Steel Curtain. That's Jack Lambert. That's Donnie Shell. You go to the mid-2000s Steelers, that's Casey Hampton. That's James Ferrier. That's Troy Polamalu. Those are the great defenses and what they were built on. You can also look, you can also look to even the year where they blew up in 2019 when Minka Fitzpatrick came, because Devin Bush he wasn't great that year, but he was very good, and then he was a very surprise of a rookie player for the Steelers, or how well he quickly adapted to the game. And of course, you had Cam Heyward and Stephon Tuitt up the middle. This is a huge part of what the Steelers do, is controlling the middle part of the field. That, Jenna, is why I think this is so crucial to the storylines of 2022 and beyond.
Oh, absolutely. And again, like for Devin Bush, I think the ceiling is high. It's not like it's not, because we saw what he did when he came in his rookie season. Like you said, it wasn't, check mark him down, definitive rookie of the year type stuff,
Right.
But it was, this guy can play. This guy is making plays. And he knows he wants to get back to that level. It's just always funny sometimes when you see kind of fans' reaction and they're like, oh, he doesn't even want to be here, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this kid is coming off of severe injury, and all he wants to do is to get back to that level and say, hey, look, I'm here. I can do this. I'm going to prove it again to myself and to you guys that I want to be here and that I'm talented enough to be here. Like, just imagine if you lose you're doing your day-to-day job, whatever it is, and you lose the ability to do that job for however many months, and then you have to get trained back up to get to that level where you were at, and then play, obviously him playing last season was great in terms of him getting back on the field. His performance on the field was something that was really easy to criticize in many different ways that I think a lot of people did. But for him to come back this year and go, when we see him, in mini camp and training camp, when we'll see him take the field, I think you're going to see something different. I'm not saying it's going to be this big magical, oh my God, Devin Bush is the greatest player ever. And, a diamond in the rough. He came back and had this insane miracle story. I think he's just going to come back and be consistent again, after having everything that he's had, all the resources that he's had this year, and having that fire lit under him to be like, oh, okay, they clearly didn't want to pay me because they don't know if I can do it. So I'm going to go out there and show them that I can.
Exactly. And if he does that, he sets himself up to be part of the Steelers for quite some time. And again, that this happens, I think it's a huge piece to what the Steelers need to become a great defense is having those talented linebackers. And to your point too, it's not just a Devin Bush thing. Bud Dupree, he tore his ACL last year or 2 years ago with the Steelers. This past season, he was not up to 100% with the Titans. It took him a long time to get his groove back. And Bud Dupree's a guy who's had a lot of success in the NFL already. And Devin Bush, a guy who, like you said, wasn't a defensive rookie of the year type of playing in his rookie season, but by the end of his second year, even with that injury, there were other NFL front office people that remained anonymous but reported to ESPN. ESPN reported that were saying that guy would have been a Pro Bowler and would have been a one of the best top 10 linebacker in the league had he not gotten hurt that season. So I think a lot of this is, like you said, he has to get not only be physically able, but mentally able and mentally trust his body enough to be the cutting and fast linebacker. Vince Williams even said it himself, a teammate of Devin Bush's from back then. But he said it himself. He was like, Devin's game is speed, it's cutting, it's reaction, it's being able to stop on a dime and go the other direction. And when you can't trust yourself to do that, not only is that those things become slower, but then you don't know how to judge everything else. And then that's when the mistakes start compounding on each other. And you start to think, oh, that kid can't read offenses. He can't diagnose what's going on, when he absolutely could, because he did it before. It's just that he's dealing with this. The question will be, can he overcome it this season and prove to the Steelers that he will be a piece moving forward? That's going to be a major storyline, Jenna, but I want to get your thoughts on Kenny Pickett. I'm not going to let you get off this show without talking about the new Steelers quarterback. I've given everyone a chance to talk about him this week, so we're going to do the same for you. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. With summer on the way, it's May, so in the summer, you need food on the go when you're out and about. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. You can throw them in your bags, your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so that they're fueled for your summer adventures. And the best part of Built Bars, they're all healthy and delicious. delicious. There's no more sacrificing delicious food for health. Built Bar can give you both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to built.com and order right now. If you haven't tried the Built Puffs yet, they're amazing. They're the first ever protein-infused protein bars, and everyone's going crazy for them because they come in crazy flavors like banana cream pie, like churro, and so many others. Check out those puff bars, and if you want the regular Built bars, those are awesome too. In fact, they come in mixed boxes that can give you up to 12 different flavors of Built bars and puffs. So check out the mixed box. My personal favorite is double chocolate. I like chocolate a lot, so you get the 100% real chocolate on the outside, and then you get even more chocolate on the inside. It's just amazing. And most Built bars, all that chocolate will still only be around 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to the average candy bar that has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. The choice is simple. Go to built.com to find your favorite Built bar flavor, whether it's banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. They're all delicious, and new flavors come out all the time. Check them out at built.com. When you go to built.com to have Built bars delivered to your door, be sure to use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order when you visit built.com. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter. She's Jenna Harner. Jenna, we didn't get to talk too much on draft night on Thursday night because we were both working pretty hard. You were at the facility. What was your general feeling when you saw Kenny Pickett was the guy the Steelers were picking?
I think the biggest tell from all of this for me was the way that Mike Tomlin came into the room with him and Kevin Colbert to address the media. He was beaming. And I tell you, we've been around this team for 2 years. Granted, yes, a decent amount has been on Zoom before this season. I don't think I've ever seen this emotion out of Mike Tomlin other than maybe after they won the Ravens game at the end of the regular season this year. And even then, I still think this is when I've seen him he was grinning like a proud dad. It was honestly a phenomenal reaction just to see that. And I think that spoke volumes for me because he was their guy. As interesting as it was kind of throughout the whole process when we were talking with them leading up to the draft, and there was so much conversation, are the Steelers going to take a quarterback? Are they not? What are they going to do? This was kind of just cementing that for me, that Kenny Pickett clearly was their guy. He is the guy that they wanted, the guy that they believe in terms of, moving on from Ben Roethlisberger. Am I saying that Kenny Pickett is going to be the next franchise quarterback? Let's pump the brakes a little bit. We're pumping the brakes. We're pumping them here. But this was clearly the guy the Steelers wanted. And I just think it's kind of fantastic too. I mean, again, you and I have both worked with Kenny Pickett when he was at Pitt too. He's phenomenal to work with in terms of being in the media and just the way that he talks to you. I enjoy his honest answers with us. And his excitement too is just incredible. But just, what a cool thing for this city too. Just seeing those reactions, I think that's kind of been fantastic. But I mean, you and I talked about this a little bit before, but I'm so intrigued to see the battle that's going to happen in training camp. I really can't wait to see him go against Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph and kind of see who comes away and who wins this job. And I think also everybody that's already panicking about, oh my God, well, if he doesn't win this job, what's going to happen? Pump those brakes. Speaking of pumping brakes, pump those brakes, because I want to tell you, and I'm not anywhere near saying this is the exact same situation, but when I was in Buffalo, I covered a training camp where Josh Allen was battling AJ McCarron and Nathan Peterman for the starting job. And Nathan Peterman won that starting job.
What?
Just going to say
Josh Allen must be a bust, right, Jenna?
Total bust. Definitely cannot throw a football. Definitely cannot win football. I just laugh. I just laugh. So pump the brakes. That you'll see that tweet from me when training camp starts and everybody panics. But this is a fantastic move. I really think this was a phenomenal idea. If the Steelers really felt like Kenny Pickett was their guy, they have all this intel. They've seen him. They've worked with him. They like what he does in the locker room. I asked Kevin Colbert that night, what do you like about him the intangibles, things that we don't see, things that we don't know. And he talked about, I like how he hinted about kind of the way that he can command a room, the way that he gets respect from his teammates. And I think that's a huge thing. We've already seen Cam Heyward say how excited he is to work with him. Granted, I did enjoy the Burger King hands tweet. That might've been my favorite thing.
That was pretty funny. Yeah. I mean, there's excitement. I mean, Cam Heyward made sure that Kenny Pickett's locker is next to his. To me, that's a show of not just the Steelers, because like you said, I wasn't in the room. I was here. I was ready so I could turn out videos and get content for you guys and go on the Locked On live stream and all that stuff. So I didn't get to see the grinning and the ear to ear smile of Mike Tomlin. And it's funny, some people were saying he wasn't happy enough. It seemed like he was just accepting that it was right. So your face is my face, because I'm just sitting here like I've heard some pretty good things that he said about Kenny Pickett. And again, this is a guy they've got to study for 5 years. If Mike Tomlin had any inkling that Kenny Pickett was this non-competitor, this guy that was just going to be like, he thinks too much of himself, he would have said something, and they would have gone a different direction with that first round pick. It's clear that they're enamored, and not just that the team, that the coaches and the front staff are, but for Cam Heyward, the current leader of this team, the face of the team. Well, you could say TJ Watt might be the face of the team, but Cam Heyward's the vocal boom. Like I carry the flag onto the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers when we go to battle. If he says I'm putting that dude next to me, that shows he thinks he can be the guy, and he's gonna be the guy that carries them forward. I think there's a lot of confidence on the team, on the roster behind Kenny Pickett. And like you said, it doesn't mean that he has to be the starter right in the middle, right at the start of training camp, in the middle of training camp, at the end of training camp. Ben Roethlisberger was not the guy, didn't win his job when he first got here. He sat behind Tommy Maddox, who was terrible when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when he sat behind, the only reason he got up as a rookie was because Tommy Maddox got hurt. So I say that to say, when we see those initial depth charts, when they get released before the preseason, Jenna, if he's even third, do not freak out, people, because this happens all the time. The Steelers make people earn their respects, especially at the quarterback position. But there is a sense of excitement with it. And to me, that speaks a lot louder than anybody's reps, how anything starts. It's the long game with these young quarterbacks, not the short game.
I was going to say exactly that. It is not a sprint. It's a marathon. So you have to kind of keep that in mind too. Again, you mentioned it. Ben Roethlisberger didn't start. If, I was going to say AJ McCarron again. If Mitch Trubisky goes out and has a phenomenal camp and plays really well and earns that job, that also can only benefit Kenny Pickett. I don't understand why that would also be a hindrance. Hey, get to learn from a guy who's talented. You don't have to go out there, deal with all this pressure that's being put on you in terms of, oh my God, well, they passed on Marino, so this is the guy, and now he might be the new face. And Kenny Pickett, as we've seen, doesn't falter under pressure anyways. I don't think he's feeling this, oh my God, I have to be this guy. But again, if that happens and Trubisky goes out and wins this job, to me, I don't see anything bad about that, because again, you give him more time to develop, to study the playbook, to get up to speed. Yep. We hear it all the time too. It's a different ball game. It's a different speed. The NFL is that one notch up in terms of the level of play these guys have been so used to. And yes, Kenny Pickett went out and won an ACC championship, but hey, what's life going to be like in the NFL for you? You want to be as prepared as possible when he does have to potentially make that jump to, hey, I'm going to be the starter whenever it's going to be. And I don't think we need to panic about the timeline of it either. We'll get there at some point, I'm sure.
I also see this, and I'll make this as my final point of the show. Y'all know one of the greatest movies of all time is The Lion King, right? And the circle of life was a wonderful thing that came out of that. Now, I say the circle of life applies here. Stay with me. I got a point here. When Ben Roethlisberger first came into the league, he talked about how when he was lining up against that great Steelers defense, who was top of the league, number one, more years than not, they gave him a hard time. They was tipping his passes. They were intercepting him. They were letting him know this is what it means to be in the NFL. And he learned from them. That toughness was something that helped him grow. And I guarantee you that's something that Kenny Pickett will face. But over time, that mentorship, that sort of tough love a little bit in practice, it flipped when the Steelers needed to recruit young defensive players. And you saw Terrell Edmonds being like, man, Ben Roethlisberger pump faked me. I bit on it, and he threw it right behind me, and he looked right at me and said, there you go, youngin. That's what you need to be ready for. And it's like the same thing. It's reciprocal. You see, the defense did it for Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger did it for the defense. And then other guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, like Devin Bush, though all those guys, they learned. And now it's flipped back. They have Cam Heyward, Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, all these great defensive players. And here come the young quarterbacks, not just Kenny Pickett. Mitch Trubisky's still young. Mason Rudolph's still young. They all got to prove themselves. And now Kenny Pickett's going to be in there, and Cam Heyward's going to be in his ear every single day after practice, after games, being able to say, like, hey, man, this is what you got. If you want to be here, this is where you got to be. And that's the circle of life, baby, because Ben Roethlisberger got it from the defense, then he gave it back to the defense, and now the defense gives it to Kenny Pickett. It's a circle. That's culture right there. And you know exactly. There you go. Do the circle right there. That's the culture that the Steelers have in their locker room. That's something that they treasure. That's why they've continued to make sure that Cam Heyward is a staple of their team, because they know that he carries that torch forward for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a leader. And I guarantee you another aspect, not just Kenny Pickett's athleticism or his accuracy or his ability to read the field, his leadership, because he did that for Pitt football. He picked up that for them there. They're expecting him to pick that up from the Steelers' current leaders and be that guy going into the future.
I don't even know how I follow that. That was just, I can't. There's nothing else I could say that would make it better. So you crushed it there. Crushed it.
Oh, thank you. I had that one came straight from the heart, because I was sitting there saying circle of life, and I love Mufasa and Simba and all them guys, but forget Scar. He's a punk. Anyways,
Scar is a punk. Noted.
There's no doubt about it. But Jenna, thank you so much for joining us here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. You're always amazing and awesome when you come on the show and when you're on Channel 11 WPXI. But let people know what you guys are up to there and where they can find more of you.
We are up to a whole lot, actually. This is kind of perfect. Next week, so a week from when this is released, Friday the 13th. I know. Ooh. I have a special airing that I did with Trey Tipton of Pitt football and his story. He's just a phenomenal kid to talk to. I can't even call him a kid because he's a couple of years younger than me. But his story is amazing. We're talking about athletes and mental health. I talked with a mental coach for a lot of NHL players. She's currently with the Capitals too, so just getting some awesome perspectives. So keep an eye out for that a week from Friday. But you can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner11, Instagram Jenna_Harner, and here every Friday with Chris. And then he joins us on Channel 11 for some fun things, final word, all of the fun.
Absolutely. Do check out Jenna. She does amazing work, as do all the great people at Channel 11 WPXI. Thanks so much for checking us out here at the Locked On Steelers podcast. Remember, if you watch us on YouTube, you can always like the video to help us out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily content. If you listen to us, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey. Be sure to check us out on there. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a positive comment, and you'll get a special shout out at the end of the show. Follow me, Chris Carter, on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Thanks again for checking out the show, everyone. We appreciate y'all. We have been in the top 30 all week when it comes to U.S. football podcast in Apple. I can't thank you all enough for listening there. Our YouTube numbers have been great. So our viewers have been awesome. We've been just rising and rising and rising. And I can't thank all our listeners and viewers enough for how much they've enjoyed this show. Trust me, we value. We're sorry we didn't get any questions on the show today. We're going to try to do more of that next week. Thanks so much for checking us out again. We'll see you next Monday when we're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, maybe talking about some new updates on your favorite football team. But until then, we hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be back right on Monday.